Lag buffering is a technique used to make tricks with small frame windows more consistent and easier to hit. This technique can be used to extend the frame windows for token 2 frames, 1 frame jumps, and cutscene skips like bounceless. But before we get into how exactly to do a lag buffer, I want to talk about what a lag buffer is. Lag buffers do exactly what you'd expect. They buffer lag. By doing a select start buffer, you're able to force what would normally be 15 frames of gameplay into a single frame. The frames that you skip will differ depending on the amount of lag you cause, but it's fairly consistent. So let's say, for example, you're trying to press A on frame 26 of an animation. Normally, you would be forced to press A on the exact frame you want, frame 26, which is pretty hard, right? Well, if you introduce a lag buffer into the equation, it becomes a lot simpler. So let's say that you lag 15 frames with a select start buffer. As long as the frame you want is within those 15 lagged frames, it will become the active frame after you unpause the game. So let's take this concept one step further into something that everyone can relate to: 1 frame jumps. Here you can see a mock-up of Patrick's damage animation. The blue indicates frames that are too early when Patrick is in his damage state. Purple indicates frames that are too late when Patrick is in his falling state. And the red indicates the single grounded frame where Patrick is in his grounded state and able to perform a double jump. Normally, we would be forced to press A on the single frame where Patrick is grounded. However, with lag buffers, we can lag 15 frames and skip over that single grounded frame. This forces the grounded frame to activate after the pause menu is closed, essentially giving us a 15 frame window, or 1/4 of a second to get that double jump, as opposed to 1/60th of a second. Finally, let's take a look at token 2 frames. This one is much simpler. The black circle indicates the token's hitbox. When you make contact with it, you collect the token. The blue color indicates Patrick walking towards the token, and in this case, it really doesn't matter. The red color, however, does matter. It indicates the distance that Patrick or SpongeBob travels within a single frame. Normally, you're required to pause on the first or second frame before you enter the token's hitbox. Once again, because lag buffers force multiple frames into one, you can essentially make Patrick or SpongeBob teleport, which is why the distance traveled in one frame is much farther. Now that you understand what a lag buffer is, we can hop into how to perform one in-game. Lag buffers require 2 things: lag and a pause buffer. I'm sure you can see why I named them this. So, how exactly do we cause lag in Movie? Well, it happens to be painfully simple. Just press select very quickly. You should be able to see SpongeBob sort of teleporting forwards, and the game should become very jittery. That's how you know you're causing lag. I'll be referring to this as a select lag or an SSL from here on. Now we can move on to the second and most important part, the pause buffer. To perform a pause buffer, simply hold down the pause button after performing an SSL. You should be able to see SpongeBob teleport, and then the pause menu should come up. There should only be 1 frame between the SSL and the pause. If it looks like this, then you're properly doing an SSL pause buffer. Now that you understand how to perform a lag buffer, we can talk about their utilization within a speedrun. First, we'll be talking about lag buffer cutscene skips. These are the easiest tricks that can utilize lag buffers. There's only one notable skip, however, that being bounceless. To perform a lag buffer bounceless, simply walk under the button, hit Y, then perform an SSL pause buffer. If you see the black bars on the top and bottom of your screen, you successfully performed a bounceless with a lag buffer. From here, you can warp to 3K Bungee and collect the token. Now that you understand how to use SSL pause buffers in a simple trick, it's time we get to the more useful stuff. Looking back on what we learned earlier, we know that we can make multiple frames of walking or falling into a single frame and have Patrick essentially teleport. We can use this teleport to warp inside of a token hitbox. Using an SSL pause buffer is very similar to a normal 2-frame. Just use the SSL pause buffer as you're approaching the token hitbox. You should teleport inside the token hitbox. It's very likely that you will do what just happened and have a token 2-frame. It's extremely rare that you'll ever see a 1-frame from this trick. You want to focus on that single frame between the select buffer and the pause menu. If it looks like you're inside of the token hitbox, then you're good to warp away. If not, then perform a normal pause buffer. In our case, you could see that we were inside the token hitbox, and we now have 2 tokens instead of 1. A good place to practice and get a grasp of token 2 frames with lag buffers is Depression's second token in Ounce of Bounce. Simply perform an SSL pause buffer as you're approaching the token. Then warp away. And as you can see, we've skipped the token animation and have 1 token instead of 0. The only token that you have to 1 frame is the end level token of No Cheese. It should look like this. The final type of lag buffer 2 frame I'll be discussing in this tutorial is a cartwheel lag buffer. I only recommend using these on tokens which have very high hitboxes like floating block challenges or Disco Star. To perform this, simply begin cartwheeling and then perform an SSL lag buffer. If you get that far into the token, it's very likely that you will get the 2 frame. And as you can see, we now have 3 tokens as opposed to 2. The final thing I'll be going over in this tutorial are lag buffer 1 frame jumps. Now, I'm assuming you already are familiar with the concept of 1 frame jumps if you're watching this video, so I'll be going over them very briefly. In the SpongeBob movie game, Patrick has 3 different animations. There's a long one, and 2 short ones. However, what's similar between all of them is 1 frame where Patrick is grounded at the end of the damage animation. In Disco Star specifically, it's very easy to see this. You sort of see Patrick's arms fling towards his mouth. That grounded frame is the frame that we're trying to skip over by utilizing a lag buffer. To do this, simply perform an SSL buffer just before Patrick would normally bring his hand towards his mouth. It should look like this. In the frame between the select button and the pause menu, you should see Patrick moving his hand towards his mouth. That's how you know you got the frame. From here, press the start button specifically. This will allow you to press A the frame after you close the pause menu, and this should allow you to do a double jump. You can practice this at this spot here until you get used to the timing of going out of the pause menu and pressing A. Now that you understand how to perform an SSL pause buffered 1 frame jump, we can start talking about their applications within the speedrun. The first trick we'll be looking at is called Disco Skip. It allows you to skip this entire section by simply jumping to the end using a double jump. To perform this, simply stand at the corner, jump back, and perform an SSL pause buffered 1 frame jump. And you can go straight to the end and collect the token. One thing I would like to note is that in a normal speedrun, you wouldn't press the button to open the disco section. You can simply do the trick. The token will still be there at the end. As I noted before, Patrick has a very different grounded animation in BBBH than compared to normal levels. So I think it's time we take a look at what Patrick's damage animation looks like in normal levels. As you can see Patrick's hand sort of fling down to his waist. That's Patrick's grounded animation in normal levels. It's a lot more difficult to see. So, when you go to do an SSL pause buffer, know that it is the same timing as it would be during Disco Skip. It just looks different. As you can see, Patrick is sort of in an A pose. If you want to freeze the frame, you can take a look. That's what Patrick's grounded animation will look like for all other levels other than BBBH. I use that as an example because it's a lot more pronounced. From there, you can unpause and do the double jump as you normally would. Now that you understand how to perform an SSL pause buffered one frame jump, it's time to move on to the elephant in the room, floating block skip. There are a lot of ways that you can do this, and I'll show off two setups right now. First, I'll show the setup that I primarily use. I personally prefer this method because it gives you a clear look at exactly what frame you have when you do the SSL pause buffer. You can see exactly whether you have the grounded frame a few frames before, or if you know you missed the trick completely. Another setup you can use is shown here. This is the setup that you'll see most runners use, like Purple Foundation, who generally don't use lag buffers. I personally wouldn't recommend this setup for lag buffers because it's very difficult to see what frame of the animation that Patrick is on. If you are doing FPS normally, it's a great setup, but for lag buffers specifically, it's a little bit more difficult. But which setup you use still just comes down to personal preference, so if you like one or the other, just use the one you feel better with.